how are nonprofits, from what you are experiencing, observing? What are they experiencing? How are they feeling?
The pressure on nonprofits is significant. And so they're feeling everything from fear and anxiety to anger and resentment, you know. And we've been through the pandemic, and the impacts of the pandemic are still being felt. Nonprofits were first responders. You know,
yes.
you know, these are frontline.
That's right.
Community organizations.
I think we forget that too.
Yeah, we forget that they were bearing the burden, often without any compensation.
Right.
And I think about one of our clients who was able to respond very quickly, and the ED describes themselves as a speedboat and not a steamship. And not just that organization, but all small community nonprofits, because they can be nimble, you know, they can act quickly, they can pivot. And this particular organization, which supplies books, was able to quickly then also distribute food and PPE, you know, to the community. And they have the relationships that are important in community with the individual community members, with the other nonprofits, with the religious institutions, right? So they've got that trust, and then they're able to respond very quickly. But even for those organizations, it's been a pile on. And then, you know, the macroeconomic factors with inflation and rising interest rates, and now the environment that we find ourselves in, where contracts are threatened. Nonprofits have really been stressed. And so I think it's important for philanthropy to step up its commitment. We all have a responsibility.
For sure.
Government, all stakeholders need
so
to come
that's
together.
really important. I think my colleagues in the systems change world would talk about cycles of change. And so what I heard you describe is yet another cycle of societal change that we find ourselves in. The beauty of it is, and it does offer a kind of hopefulness to it, is that we can always refer to another cycle, a previous cycle of change, for some examples of what to bring into the current or emerging cycle that we find ourselves in. What we find in our approach at GEO is to really honor the complexity of moments, appreciating that they are all happening inside of these cycles of change that recur. Each cycle looks slightly different in terms of its shape, its texture, the impact of the activities, but they resemble. There are through lines that allow us to revisit what we didn't address fully in previous cycles. Right, and so again, that's the hope of it. But honoring complexity allows us to say, you know what, Grantmakers feel the same thing that you just described with nonprofits. Grantmakers experience, from our observation, that same kind of fear. Several experience anger, right? And trust. If you've seen one philanthropy, one Grantmaker, you've seen one Grantmaker. That's right. Everyone's different. So we're careful to not paint anyone or characterize anyone monolithically. And there's hope in that too, right? Because there's change is possible for all of us. We're all learning.